Okay, thank you. Now the second part of this issue relates to the approach to be taken to proposals for sub-regional community sports and leisure facilities. And this is where I'm going to bring you in, Mr. Adams and Mr. King. Mr. King, it may be that this is the appropriate point for you to make your submissions.
There is an appropriate point there now.
Okay.
Can I have a copy handed to you and the programme officer and the Cambs, of course, very clear just before we vote, they can have advance form. And I know there's going to be there may be a written response, but I think I think you'll find this is I don't have the details familiar, but the documents which are before the inquiry, with possibly two exceptions, but we just haven't found a document reference numbers. I'll point that out. And it's the bit on the last page, more or less, that's the important bit from my client's point of view. Anyway, well, Madam, as you know, our interest, the objective's interest is in relation to community stadium. And I won't read this all out, but now I'll take you through the submissions. Just by way of background, you will have seen the representation in relation to Cambridge Local Plan Policy 73, which is submitted by Savills. And obviously at that time the plan included the references in, that is the Cambridge Local Plan, to the joint assessment with this authority to identify an appropriate deliverable site for community stadium which the plan says could contribute to the current under-provision of various sports facilities in the area. The South Cambridgeshire Local Plan puts things slightly differently in paragraphs 916 to 918. It also refers to the desirability of facilities of sub-regional significance, including a community stadium, and it talks about non-greenbelt sites not likely to be available, and if a facility that kind of thing be provided in greenbelt exceptional circumstances, it has to be shown. That's what the plans say. The Savills objection proposed the allocation of land at Trumpington in the Greenbelt and at the existing Abbey Stadium for a community football stadium, other sports facilities and residential development, and we're going to, certainly you were going to come on to that later on, obviously I'm not going to go into that today in any way. Just to mention though, as is mentioned in South Cambridgeshire's statement for the purposes of this session, that the objective's project has changed somewhat since it was first advanced and then, as I'll mention briefly, considered as part of the local plan process. The previous proposal was that the Abbey Stadium would be completely redeveloped, and that a new stadium for Cambridge United Football Club and possibly other rugby and football clubs and other sporting clubs, together with a range of other sports facilities and also housing, would be developed on land partly in the Greenbelt, I think, and partly not, at Trumpington. So that was the proposal. Then you got rid of the existing Abbey Stadium, you redeveloped it, you moved it to Trumpington. The proposal that's now the subject of these planning applications, which were made in July, retain and upgrade the Abbey Stadium, so that stays where it is. But at Trumpington, there's still a range of other sports facilities proposed and indeed housing. Just to add something very briefly, the development of the Abbey Stadium is called in the applications Cambridge Community Stadium development, and the Trumpington development is called Cambridge Sporting Village, and that's what they're called. The two applications go on those two names. You probably know that already. Well, now we've got some modifications which came out, as I understand it, in September, or were proposed in September, to both local plans. I'll try to summarise what they do. The effect of which I say would be to remove the stated intention to find a site for the community stadium, and indeed to assert that no need for such a stadium has been identified. And really, if I read the documentation, any reason for the changes which both councils have given, is that these two recent documents, June 2016 documents, the playing pitch strategy and the indoor sports facilities strategy, don't identify a need for a community stadium. That's really the reason that's given. And we say, well, that doesn't wash, basically. I mentioned the PIN's guidance, which obviously I'm sure you're bearing well in mind, I know you will be, but just to remind everybody, paragraph 520 on the procedural practice and examination of those, there's a very strong expectation that further post-submission planning authority-led changes to the plan won't be necessary. And it says provision for changes after submission of the plan is the case of the unexpected. Well, that's not what's happened here, we suggest. There's also material about process in paragraph 521, which I know you and your assistant inspector have that in hand, and I make no remarks about it. But we do point out that so far as the proposed modifications are concerned, well, we don't think that bodies like Cambridge United Football Club or Sporting have actually consulted on them. But
no, that's, and I'll just come in here if I can, just to talk a little bit about the process. Could you turn your microphone? Yes. You can only have one word at a time. The council's, this happened in the context of the Cambridge City hearings.
Yes.
The council proposed what at that stage they referred to as minor modifications. Mr. Wood held that session. He and I mean, we hadn't seen those before we received the council statement, but he and I came to the view that they should be considered as major modifications. But we also indicated to both councils at that stage that we didn't want a drip process of consultation on modifications that might come forward through the hearings, and that we would ask them to just have one further consultation on all the modifications that might come out as a result of the hearing sessions. So there will be consultation, and it will be on the basis of whether Mr. Wood and I consider that those modifications are necessary for soundness. But we're some way away from getting to the point where we know what the councils are putting forward, and we go through the process of saying, well, is that necessary for soundness or not?
Madam, many thanks. That's most helpful indeed. It accords with what I've been told. I just wasn't sure. This wasn't intended to say there's been a procedural defect. In the least, it's simply making the observation that bodies who might have views about these modifications, we understand haven't yet been consulted. That's all I'm saying. But I'm most grateful for that explanation. Let's press on. Now, there's something headed chronology which goes on for almost a couple of pages, and this is very largely factual. I mean, there are a couple of comments, but this is substantially factual. It's meant to be a review of what's happened, going right the way back to 2005 in relation to this community stadium sub-regional facility. And I'll canter through this pretty quickly, if I may. I'm sure.
Yes, please do.
Yeah, okay. Major sports facility strategy 2005, community football stadium identified as a sub-regional priority. 2008, feasibility study, 3 possible sites, and some next steps identified. March 2012, we have the framework, and we draw attention in particular to paragraph 70 in chapter 8, promoting healthy communities, as a need to plan positively for community facilities, including sports venues. Then we've got the first issues and options report for the Cambridge local plan. There were questions asked in that consultation about the need for a new sub-regional stadium, how big should it be, where it should be, and there were some specific questions about the Abbey Stadium and Grosvenor's then proposals. We haven't been able to find the summary representations relating to that, so I haven't, as you've told you about that. I don't think that's particularly significant from the point of view today, because I'm going to refer in a little bit more detail to the summary representations on the January 2013 options 2 consultation exercise. So around the same time, though, South Cambridgeshire issued their first issue of an options report. Again, questions were asked. Issue 84 was about the community stadium. The Grosvenor then proposal was referred to. Question 84 said, is there a need? What type and size should it be, and where should it be located? And we do know the results of that, although I don't know the date. I mean, obviously it was after July 2012, but probably not much after. And I just invite you to know that 80% of the REP supported the need for a community stadium. Then we move on slightly more recently to January 2013, where there was a sort of suite of documents, as you obviously already very well aware. First of all, the major facilities, sub-regional facilities in the Cambridge sub-area review of evidence and site options document. Number of references are given. The site options included the existing Abbey Stadium, either as it was or with the allotments to the south. Also, they included Grosvenor's site at Trumpington. The conclusions of that review acknowledged the potential benefit of the Cambridge sub-region of a community stadium, and it said this, which is defined, but there it is. It said that in terms of whether there's a need, it's considered that demonstrable need is a subjective issue and should be tested further through public consultation. Well, it was tested further through public consultation. My paragraph 17, same month, January 2013, issues and options, part 2, part 1, joint consultation on development strategy and site options. Chapter 10 is the bit that we're interested in, sub-regional sporting, cultural and community facilities. I just note that, as I understand it, the consultation period ended in February 13. We then have a section on the community stadium. There's a definition of community stadium, which seems perfectly reasonable. Then we've got the principles for a community stadium, and that was expressly consulted upon. And then there's a reference to previous exploration of site options and the green belt constraint. And then we've got the questions. Need for and principles for a community stadium, and whether exceptional circumstances existed for a green belt review. There were 9 potential community stadium site options, including the Abbey Stadium plus the allotments. They dropped the Abbey Stadium only at this stage, plus the Trumpington site and obviously 7 others. And question 7 asked which of the site options, if any, were supported, and they were described in some detail. I just note the interim sustainability appraisal issues and options document of paragraph 18. For completeness, I won't read that out. It doesn't really add anything, I don't think. Then we come to the summary of representations on the consultation document. And I put unknown date in 2013. Obviously must be after the 18th of February, which is when the consultation ended. But I assume that don't know, and we've tried to track this down, before the submission local plans were published in July that year. And I've set out some figures, and I'm not going to go through these because I come back to them in the summary, and I think that's sufficient for present purposes rather than reading all of this out. But I would just add the observation that, frankly, a bit strangely, because I think we suggest this is quite an important bit of evidence, the statements that those councils have prepared on matters CC5 and specifically on community sports and leisure facilities really fail to refer to that document and the outcome of this consultation exercise, which seems to be quite important given that the review of evidence and site options document said the need for a community stadium should be tested further through public consultation. That's what this exercise did, as I understand it. Just for your note, the only reference, I think, is what it is to these representations received in response to consultations. In paragraph, we'll stick to South Cambridgeshire representations, although I think there's a similar paragraph, there is a similar paragraph in the Cambridge City Council document. Paragraph 77 of the matter CC5 statement from September of this year, it says, amongst other things, like halfway through, although support was demonstrated, that is, for a community stadium, through representations to the issues and options report. There's no footnote reference, but I assume that's what this is referring to. There was also a considerable level of objection to specific proposals, and I've dealt with that in paragraph 19.6 in statistical terms at least. So it is strange that the councils don't recognise the results of this consultation exercise, which you can see there was, I'll come back to, as I say, very substantial support for the need for a community stadium, the principles set out in the document, and that there were exceptional circumstances for the review of Greenbelt, but that seems to have been bluntly largely ignored. Anyway, moving on, June this year we got these two strategy documents, the playing pitch strategy and indoor sports facility strategy. Those were published jointly by the two councils, and as I say, it seems that these are the only things that the councils rely on for these modifications. And they say, well, they don't identify a need for a community stadium. But actually, if one reads the documents, I've given the references, neither of the briefs for those documents appeared to have referred to or requested an assessment of the need for or potential location of a community stadium. I mean, incidentally, we don't think that the football club, Cambridge United Football Club, were consulted on either of those documents. 14 of them were, but not the football club. But neither of them includes any reference to a community stadium at all. And it seems that they weren't asked to consider that matter. In June, and I'll take 2023 together, in early June this year, both of those strategies were reported to the respective relevant bodies, the Planning Scrutiny Discovery Committee and the planning portfolio holder of these two councils, and they resolved in similar terms. Both councils endorsed the strategies, and any subsequent minor amendments and editing changes in Cambridge's case were to be made in consultation with nominated councils and delegated officer, probably given to the direct planning in this authority. So please, we suggest bear in mind the words any subsequent minor amendments and editing changes. Then we've got the planning applications, and then we've got this, these modifications proposed that I understand came up on the 7th of September. So where are we with all of this? 2005, community stadium identified as a sub-regional priority. 2008, shortlisting of 3 sites, recommendations for further action. July 2012, options and issued consultation, strong support for need for community stadium in South Cambridge. I haven't got the Cambridge information, 80%. January 2013, review of evidence and site options, 9 potential sites, need to test further through public consultation. Consultation document, chapter 10, questions about need, principles, greenbelt release and specific site options. That of course was a joint council exercise. We've got the results of the consultation exercise, strong support for a need for a community stadium, 67%, principles 85%, exceptional circumstances 78%, and as far as I can make out, it is a bit difficult to understand this bit, but the figures are there for you and others to look at. Strong support for a site to be identified. And although Trumpington had slightly, when you look at the individual site consultation results, and I gave the figures earlier, Trumpington had slightly more against than for. It was in fact the most favoured of the site options in terms of support against opposition. And then we got the local plans published with these references in them that the councils now want to modify. About a year later, the 2 strategies were published, and it doesn't appear that the briefs included consideration or review of the need for location of a community stadium. And so we say, wholly unsurprisingly, neither document makes any reference at all to this. They are completely silent on the question of the community stadium, which is perhaps remarkable given the history. Then the strategies were endorsed and nothing was said about a community stadium. We then got the planning application, then we got the modifications. So what do we conclude from this, or indeed invite you to conclude? Just going back to the PIN's guidance, we suggest the proposed modifications don't cater for the unexpected. What's unexpected is the modifications. And there's, we think, contravention of 520 of the PIN's guidance. In any event, there's no, we submit, rational justification for the modifications. Up to the publication of the strategies earlier this year, previous studies, public consultation and the submission of local plans had all supported the provision of a community stadium to serve the sporting and leisure needs of the area, with the prospect, that was kicked into the long grass slightly, with the prospect of a suitable site being identified in due course, obviously not necessarily in the greenbelt, but possibly in the greenbelt. The strategies are the reason given by the councils for the mods, but they don't in fact, we submit, address the matters concerning the provision of a community stadium that have been considered over a number of years in a number of documents and consultation exercises, and they're in fact entirely silent on the subject. And for these reasons, they really, we suggest, have no bearing on the question of whether a community stadium should be provided, and if so, where. Both councils endorsed the strategies and said minor amendments and editing changes could be picked up later. There was no suggestion that the strategies could have any significance for or bearing on, and I put this, I mean the question of the community stadium. So when that authority was given to pick up minor amendments and editing changes later on, there was no suggestion at that stage, and that's perhaps significant, that it had anything to do with what the plan said about a community stadium. They've rightly been treated, these modifications, as we just explained, as main, not minor modifications, and we just raised the question of what authority the councils have to promote these modifications given the limited terms of the June resolutions. We say the modification shouldn't be allowed, but furthermore, we also say that as there remains clear evidence of sub-regional need and widespread support for a community stadium, which would help to address sporting needs which have been consistently identified over many years, and in the light of the framework para 70, we invite you to conclude that policy SC4 should make positive provision for meeting all of those needs on suitable sites. But I'm very grateful to you for allowing me to submit that and to go through it, and that concludes my role for the time being. Many thanks.
Thank you. Just one minor point.
Yeah.
Would it be possible for you to send Annette an electronic copy of this? Because I would like to be able to pass it on to Mr. Wood easily. And if you can supply that, it can be done, in
And you'll get the document I will make out of that.
Yes.
Of course, no problem, I'll do that later.
Thank you. Now, I've obviously said that I'll give you the opportunity to respond in writing, but equally if there's anything that you wanted to say now, I'm happy for you to do that.
Thank you, Graham. I guess we would welcome the opportunity to be able to respond in writing. There is, I fit in there that we would like to take that opportunity to do. But dealing today with at least some of those issues and the council's position, the council has set out its position within its statement. It is clear within that statement that the council does not intend to identify a site for a community stadium. We say that paragraph 118 of the plan provides an appropriate context for any applications. Clearly we're aware of the current application, but I think that is a separate matter from the council considered the need for subdivision facilities through plan making, and Mr. King has taken us through a process, and we will provide some detailed comments on a number of points through there, but I won't take time today on who does it work, try to respond in detail to those. But the council has explored in an open way through the plan making process whether there is a need for a community stadium and whether there is evidence to support a need, and there has been public consultation at 2 stages of issues and options consultation, as well as on the proposed mission plan. The council has undertaken recent studies, and I'll turn to my colleague in a moment to say a bit more about those studies. But we say those studies do follow the sporting methodology for assessing sports needs. They're guided by a steering group which included Sportington and a number of the sport governing bodies, and including the Football Association, and address the broad issue of, and quite specific issue of the need for sporting facilities in the area, and includes an action plan for how those needs should be met. And you'll be aware that there is a statement on the ground with Sporting and that has been submitted to the examination. So council consider that in the light of the evidence we have that there is not an identified need for a community stadium. That said, through the plan making process, alongside consideration of need and for a view on whether there was a need was reached, we did at the same time consult on whether, if a need was identified, whether there were suitable sites available, and the evidence base and our statement highlights the difficulties with sites should a need have been identified, but the council's position is that we do not consider in light of the full round of plan making and evidence that there is an identified need for a community stadium. I'll pass on now to my colleague to elaborate a little more on some of those matters.
Just touching on the playing pitch strategy and the indoor sports strategy, these were commissioned in response to issues raised by Sport England over the planning process. They very much follow the Sport England methodology for assessing sports needs and documenting clearly how each of those processes in that methodology has been carried out. They were guided by a steering group which included Sport England, but also appropriate times representatives from governing bodies across a range of sports, including the FA. Studies assessed the need for pitches and other sports facilities based on levels of participation, including future population growth. The Grover statement referred to these studies as identifying minimum need. They're not. I wouldn't say they did identify minimum levels of provision. They identified what was needed based on an appropriate assessment of what needs are going to be, following that sporting guidance. The Grover statement also refers to them identifying significant need. I don't believe that phrase is used in the studies either. Once the need was identified, the next step in that process was to prepare action plans on how those sporting needs should be addressed. Again, those action plans were prepared very much working with the governing bodies, taking account of their views about how those sporting needs should be met. And the final action plans were signed off at steering groups, which were attended by those governing bodies. The action plans present realistic and robust ways of delivering those strategies. They include a range of delivery methods, from enhanced existing sites, including ones in Cambridge, delivering new facilities through growth, including provision at new secondary schools. Many of these facilities identified in action plans for need are already coming forward. So, for example, some of the 3G pitches mentioned, there's already provision now coming forward in North West Cambridge. Community use agreement at site at Trumpington. There's a planning application for additional provision at Howes Close, which is one of the hockey facilities. So the council's well aware now of the needs to implement those action plans, and steps are already taken to bring forward facilities and continue to monitor their success. These studies do not identify a need for a stadium because they came with a way of meeting the needs which was best described, and a need for a stadium wasn't required in order to do that through a commercial stadium facility. They focus on how to deliver that community need through provision of a range of sites. Therefore, we felt that the modification proposed to 917 and similarly the Cambridge plan appropriately reflect what that new and up-to-date evidence base was factually saying.
Thank you, Madam. If I could just respond first to some of the points made by Mrs. Hunt and then Mr. Dixon. The first point that Mrs. Hunt made was that paragraph 918 of the South Cambridge local plan provided an appropriate context for the consideration of proposals for the community stadium. In our view, paragraph 19 falls well short of a policy that should plan positively for the provision of a community stadium and other significant indoor and outdoor sporting facilities that have been identified as being required. It provides no guidance at all other than exceptional circumstances would need to be demonstrated. And I don't think that is what was envisaged in paragraph 70 of the framework, which states that to deliver the social, recreational and cultural facilities and services the community needs, planning policies should plan positively for the provision and use of shared space community facilities, which includes sports venues and other local services to enhance the sustainability of communities and residential environments. So we think that policy 918 and indeed policy SC4, which essentially is dealing with the provision of local facilities arising in housing developments, falls well short of the requirement to plan positively for these very significant facilities that have major land use and spatial implications. We may come later to I might take now a point, Madam, which draws comparison with the Cambridge local plan. And it's a slightly new point, but I think it is relevant. Although if we turn to policy 73 of the Cambridge local plan, as submitted,
I don't, for obvious reasons, have that plan with me today.
Well, my point is a simple one. In relation to the community stadium and the other significant indoor and outdoor sports facilities for which a need has been identified, both in the evidence base which led up to the submission plan, and indeed more recently in the playing pitch strategy document and the indoor facilities document. There are a range of facilities which are required to serve the Cambridge area as a whole. They are sub-regional. And we think that the policies in the South Cambridge local plan should be, to put it simply, essentially the same as the policies in the Cambridge local plan in respect of policies that seek to provide a framework for the planning of sports facilities of a sub-regional significance. And we don't see the justification for South Cambridgeshire not having a much more locally based approach in their actual policy to planning for community sports facilities. Cambridge, in Policy 73, has submitted providing a framework for the assessment of sub-regional facilities, when actually these facilities may be located either in Cambridge or South Cambridgeshire, or possibly straddling the boundary between both authorities. So for a sub-regional facility, we think that the two plans should be much more closely aligned, and that South SC 4 combined with paragraph 9.18, which is essentially what we're invited to focus on, falls well short of what is required to plan positively for these significant facilities. It is also it's inconsistent with the Cambridge local plan position, and therefore, and that seemed to be a flaw in the approach to planning for these major facilities. So I wanted to pick that point up in my submissions. My next point in response to Mrs. Hunt is that she says that the need for a community stadium was identified and explored in an open way. And I think the point that we're making, and that Mr. King has made, I'm not going to repeat the detail, was that the need for the community stadium that was consistently identified up to the submission of both local plans was supported both by professional evidence, but also by the outcome of public consultation. It was certainly an open and transparent approach, but the conclusion that the councils are now reaching doesn't actually take account of the evidence. And in terms of the playing pitch and indoor facility strategy, we recognise that there was a steering group, but we think it's quite significant that the Cambridge United Football Club and Cambridge United Community Trust, that is responsible for organising sporting programmes for sectors of the population that wouldn't normally have easy access to sport, particularly football, weren't involved in the study. And that's particularly important because the community stadium was always designed to have as one of its anchor uses Cambridge United Football Club. But they weren't represented on the steering group. And indeed, Sport England's remit doesn't extend to elite football or professional sport, professional football. So there's clearly a gap in the makeup of the steering group, which I think supports our contention, is that there is no evidence in the scope of the indoor sports facility strategy or the playing pitch strategy documents, or indeed in the way in which the outcome of those studies were reported to the relevant committees and portfolio holders of Cambridge City Council and South Cambridge Council. No reference at all to a community stadium. And we think that's a fundamental gap in both the scope of the work and the conclusions of the work, if one is going to take those conclusions and rely upon them to remove two very important paragraphs from the Cambridge City Plan, which set out that there would be a joint process for finding an appropriate site to accommodate the community stadium and to deliver it. And that, I think, has taken me into the points that Mr. Dixon had covered. We accept that the two strategies followed the methodology of the Sport England to assess the need for playing pitches in indoor sports. But the community stadium is a very specific sub-regional facility. And it is clear from the history of the community stadium project in Cambridge that it was a specific proposal that should have been specifically addressed in these two studies if these studies were set up to review the need for a community stadium. I think those are the points that I wanted to make in response to this council. I have got a point relating to the question little 4 in the agenda.
We'll come on to that. And I'll ask the council if they need to respond to the points you've just made.
Going order points, I would dispute the fact that the plan does not appropriately deal with sporting needs and require by the NPPF. There are a range of policies. It requires appropriate provision of community facilities, including sport, provision of open space. That requirement has been justified by evidence, and we now have the strategies which have been properly prepared according to sporting recommendations. The point was also made that the study just looks at the needs of housing developments. I completely dispute that point. The study looked at the sporting needs of the area that included existing needs and shortfalls and demand created by growth. The FA were fully involved in the study along with sporting needs, as I mentioned earlier. The study explored how best to meet the needs of sporting facilities. The need for a community stadium did not come up as being necessary as the way to meet those needs which are identified through the action plan. The study focused on looking at how those needs could best meet the needs of the community and not providing a commercial facility for the football club. The reason they look at a stadium, the council already had extensive evidence base looking specifically at the stadium issue. This was about following the sporting methodology, looking at how we address sporting needs.
And just revolve from that, I think just here to reiterate, we are here to be examining the standards of the South Cambridgeshire local plan. And whilst there are some parallels with the Cambridge local plan, it's the South Cambridge local plan that we are looking at today. I think just to come back on one point that Mr. Adams made, I think he indicated that the councils had accepted the need for community stadium after submission. I believe that's what I heard him say. That is not the case. The councils were exploring whether